Yeah, they will be going to you. Okay, so let's get going. Good evening. Welcome to all of you, both who are present here and also those who are on the virtual channels. I think it's time that at least those who are following this from TIFR campus on virtual platform should actually come down and enjoy the non-COVID atmosphere. So I invite all of you to come as the program is just about to start. It gives fantastic feeling and pleasure to have both of them actually spoke in asset colloquium earlier, but having them together is, I think, more than double the pleasure. You will see why I say this, because individually they both are kind of celebrities, rock stars, if I can use that word for them. But the situation which the time at which they made a big difference to this country is something hopefully will be unfolded in front of you. And then you'll realize what it means really to make something, so much different to this country and which we all enjoy, not just who are sitting here, but every probably nook and corner of this country today enjoys these fruits of IT just because people like Harish, people like Kanavi, some time ago, long ago, let me say, had actually thought how this country should actually have these in our country. I am very excited, as you can see from my tone, that it is something going to be probably one of its kind of event that is going to happen here soon. It's very, very hard, obviously, to kind of even formally introduce both the speakers, but let me just say a couple of words on both of them, and I don't want to take more of their time. Harish Mehta, as I said, is actually the person behind NASSCOM. He is actually a co-founder of NASSCOM. And Shivanand, Shivanand Kanavi is adjunct faculty at this moment, NIAS, Bengaluru. And Harish was the main driving force behind galvanizing the entire IT industry in India by co-founding NASSCOM. The IT industry is the first and major association. He was elected as the first chairperson of NASSCOM and also continues to be the convener of NASSCOM's Chairman's Council. He has also founded and mentored the Onward group of companies. This is another big facet of him. If you really look at on the web, you will see what it actually means to have completely a different sphere in which he had done major contribution. He has been awarded 25 years of exemplary contribution to the IT industry by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Lifetime Achievement Award by the IMC Chamber of Commerce and Industry, CEO of the Year by NIAS. By the way, these awards for him come every week probably. And yesterday, suddenly at 9 o'clock, here, sir, please accept the CEO's Year of Award. So after some time, you kind of lose how many awards. So I actually messaged him saying that your crown is too crowded already. Where do you fit this feather? And the Tata HRD Network, the World HRD Congress, and so on and so forth. But this is again something very interesting. He did his bachelor's from the College of Engineering, Pune, and master's from Computer Science, Brooklyn Polytechnic Institute. And he became director of College of Engineering, Pune, later for almost 5 years. And so let me actually stop because we want to hear more from him. And looking at the other rock star that I mentioned today is he starts his career as an academics and theoretical physics in IIT Kanpur and then Northeastern University in Boston, IIT Bombay and Bombay University, spanning almost from 70s to mid 80s. And it turned into economics consulting between 84 and 92, later to business journalism. Look at the bandwidth, look at the kind of spread. And he was the executive editor, boss actually of India's pioneering business magazine called Business India. And I'm sure many of you must have read his articles, some of them on TFR as well, and then joined the Tata Group in early 2004. And as vice president in TCS, the largest and pioneering IT company, services company, in fact, in the world. And is author of widely acclaimed books, Sang to Silicon, which in fact GRK was just talking about, and Research by Design, Innovation and TCS, and so on. So this is brief introduction of today's speakers, but before I can formally invite them to the podium, I think there is something very interesting video that kind of sets the stage for today's, I think, event. Can I request you to play that? By the way, while it is being done, let me also take this opportunity. The latest bestseller of Harish is actually,
you have a courier.
You can even buy before the tea time.
It's from my new boss, biography of NASSCOM. He's gifted this to the entire floor. And security check is already done, huh?
What is this? NASSCOM?
That is the American Stock Exchange.
Oh, this Mehta has done something in US Stock Exchange also.
Hey, that is NASDAQ. This is NASSCOM. And the author is Harish Mehta. Ayo.
Oh, okay. You tell, what is NASSCOM?
NASSCOM is an association of software companies. Like, okay, why do we have the Resident Welfare Association?
For imposing penalties and for spending maintenance money and facilities nobody has asked for in the first place.
No, what is it really for?
Resident Welfare Association is for welfare of residents to represent us in different public matters. That's all.
Correct. Think of NASSCOM as a Resident Welfare Association for software companies. NASSCOM ensures that the government understands what these residents can do for the country and how the government can cooperate.
What our association is doing?
Crying because people are not paying maintenance.
And software industries have contributed 8% to the country's GDP. See, India makes more from exporting software than Saudi Arabia does from exporting oil. No other sector makes more forex or generates more employment for India than the software industry.
People only are getting maximum appraisals, marriage proposals. Whereas the consent sector,
And women are able to pursue a career, safe, equal opportunity, marriage-based industry. Now both are here, thanks to the culture of software industry.
Thanks to Indian parents who are putting their children in engineering. Pay seat, free seat. They should add one thanks page in that book, correct?
Indian parents knew one day India will need more engineers than Saudi Arabia has oil. I would have laughed harder, but this mask is very tight.
But because of software only, so much brain drain has happened.
Because of software, too much brain circulation has happened. Indian techies have built such a solid reputation for Indian IT. Look at this. Krishnamurthy, who had become Chris after going to America, was now back to being Krishnamurthy for the Americans. They always needed us, but now they want us.
And Manohara wants to borrow that book after you have finished reading.
No?
What? Book circulation will only lead to brain circulation. Tilka.
Interesting. Okay. Can you admit? Okay. So with that nice, short video, which also puts today's thing in a good perspective. Now, may I invite both Harish and also Shivanand to come and take seats at the podium. And now it will be, I want to hand over mic to Shivanand, who is actually going to be the moderator for today's event. Yeah. Sorry, you will put what about I can arrange
Hello. Sorry.
Hello. Yeah, it's okay, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hello. Yes.
Hello.
Yeah.
The camera is on them. Online you can see.
Yes.
Okay.
All set.
Right. Okay. I welcome you all for this conversation with Harish Mehta. When I first got a call from Dr. Satyanarayan that they're planning this as part of it's a slightly different program than a normal asset colloquium, which is technical. This is about technology industry and its history and its evolution, etc. Now it took me 4.5 hours to reach here, and it will take me another 4.5 hours to get back. So, but still, I accepted it and the invitation for 2 reasons or 3 reasons. One is I know how hard Dr. Satyanarayan works outside of his neutrinos to promote IEEE in engineering colleges and among students and so on and so forth. Anything which has to do with talking about the few achievements that we have and of which we can be proud of is something worth doing it, because we have so few role models and so few success stories. And the second thing is, of course, TIFR, with which I had off and on a relationship for nearly 43 years now. The first time I came here, I think, was in 78, 79, when Professor Virendra Singh was the director, and there were celebrations of the Einstein centenary. I was still in physics at that time. Later, I visited as a journalist. I have written about TIFR. And third, the most important thing is Harish, because one never loses a chance to talk to him. One learns so much, and he's such an amiable personality. In fact, in Business India, in our editorial room, there was a half joke, which was that the best looking IT person is Harish. So you can always, send a photographer and put him on the cover. So it's a pleasure to talk to him. And I've known him for at least 2 decades now, as a journalist, as an IT industry person myself later. One disclaimer that I am one of his admirers and friends, and on top of it, he was part of the jury which awarded me the best journalist award in 2004. So let me state it up front. Yeah. So Harish, is a great pleasure. This extremely well-written book for a number of reasons. One is, along with science and technology history, I am also a student of business history. And what I find is there are very few Indian entrepreneurs who have written their memoirs. Even and we have a few good biographies, but memoirs, very few. In fact, JRD didn't write his memoirs. G.D. Birla didn't write his memoirs. So many of the Jamshedji, of course, didn't write any memoirs. I don't think Darbari Seth wrote or Sumant Molgaonkar wrote. None of the greats of the 20th century India wrote their memoirs. But now there is a trend, either memoirs or their thoughts on the future of India, etc. Nandan Nilekani wrote, Ramadoroy wrote, Chandrasekharan has written on Digital Nation. Now you have written, Chris Gopalakrishnan has written. This is a welcome trend, I think, because, as business historians, economic historians, we go into documentation, chronology, etc., which is very dry. It has its place, its importance, but the real excitement of the changes that are happening and how they came about, that only comes through a person who participated in it. They might have, they are not histories, normally they are called oral histories, or memoirs, even better memoirs. So I think your memoir is very readable, and it has a number of components. So what I would like to do is, we have, I think, 45 to 50 minutes, 40 minutes. So I'll try to deconstruct Harish Mehta and his work into four topics. They are all interlinked, but I would still like to separate the four. First is his own story as an entrepreneur, how he turned an entrepreneur from an engineer, and what all he went through in his journey of entrepreneurship. Second is the IT industry itself, since he has seen it from the very, very early days of mid 70s, late 70s. So how it evolved and what kind of atmosphere it faced, and how it broke through all of that. And today, of course, it is a great success story, no doubt about that. But that didn't come easily. So the IT industry is number two. And number three, an unusual lobby, industry lobby was created. And Harish played a key role in that. In fact, yesterday we were having a short chat and I called him the linchpin of this industry association. And linchpin is actually the small little pin which holds the wheel to the axle. If you remove that pin, the wheel, all the four wheels will fall off and the vehicle will crash. That's why it is called the linchpin. And without that, the vehicle will not go anywhere. And he held and built such an association, played a key role in that, in holding diverse personalities, diverse egos, and diverse achievers, all of them achievers in themselves, and still work towards a common goal. So the story of NASSCOM, that is the story of NASSCOM, that is number three. And number four, something which he has not talked about much, but he along with Mr. Kohli, FC Kohli, and then they roped in Rahul Bajaj and Arun Firodia and Pratap Pawar, etc., to revitalize, re-energize a 200-year-old institution called College of Engineering, Pune. And what are the learnings from that and how we can apply it elsewhere? Because we have so many of these old institutions which need revitalization. We can go around building new IITs, but what about our old institutions? How to do that? So let's start with the first one, which is your own journey. What made you first, of course, what made you go to Brooklyn Polytech? I can imagine.
Before I talk about it, first of all, thank you, Doctor, for inviting me to come and share my views here. Thank you. I mean, you traveling 4.5 hours from Igatpuri I didn't know it is such a long distance, but I'm very happy that you are here. By the way, he is a encyclopedia, Wikipedia, whatever you want to call him, on the Indian business in general and IT industry in particular. And my relationship with TIFR goes back, I was telling Doctor half an hour back, to early 80s, when Dr. Narasimhan was the director. And we wanted to demonstrate the first online connection in India. So Computer Society of India had an event at Pune, where we had taken one terminal. And of course, in those days, not VSNL, but BS or telecom department, DOT, they put in 2-3 months of efforts to connect that terminal from Pune to the deck 10 in this building. And Dr. Sadanandan and myself, we wrote the application software, which you could access from Pune. And it was a huge success. But that was in 84. And we wanted to make a point about certain advantages of telecom, but didn't go anywhere, frankly. It took another 10 years before the telecom line started becoming available. So coming now to your first question about my entrepreneurial journey, I did my, I can say, computer science from USA. I worked there for 5-6 years, and somehow we didn't settle in the US. We couldn't Americanize ourselves. We tried our best, me and my wife. And then we said we want to go back and stay with the family. This is 1976. I had a green card. When I came back, here everyone said, why have you come? You are, and I tore up the green card saying that I'm really here to stay. They said, land of paradise, land of honey and money, you're giving up and you'll come back here. And same thing in the US, everyone had said, all my friends, you'll be back in 30 days. There's nothing in India for you to survive and thrive and grow. But we didn't really, I was not so much looking at all that, just simply saying, I want to stay with the family, and I'll be very happy. But then I wanted to do my own business. My father was in film distribution business. I went with him for his few visits. I said, oh my God, I'm a computer science database expert. I can't do this overseas film distribution business. I looked at my father-in-law's business. So they still manufacture two-wheeler parts. So he said, why don't you manufacture zinc nipple for this part, which I need? So you 100% at least demand would be catered by me. So he took me to Kanjurmarg to look at a gala. When I looked at that gala, I was so shocked. The labor conditions are terrible. I said, there's no way in the world I can be in this business. Plus, they had serious labor problems. Then I met my cousin, and my cousin said, Harish, you please go back to the flight tomorrow back to US. I said, why are you saying that? It was a very simple, straightforward person. When you do business, you do the straight business. Here, you don't know whether your competitor is doing customs chori or excise tax chori or income tax chori and whatnot. When you do not know the input cost of your competitor's product, how are you going to compete? And it made sense to me. Okay, there's no way I can compete in such an environment. That's where the technology as a term came in. Okay, you cannot bribe a jump instruction to go ahead of, and then say, process me first to the microprocessor. So that's a business hopefully would be driven by meritocracy. And that's where I started becoming an entrepreneur. And it just happened that I was on my visit to Delhi, and I met Major Balasubramaniam. And he said, for a person like you to come back and settle in India, we are coming up with a scheme where you can import a computer with giving, I think, 200 or 400% software export commitment. And then that's where I came back. Praveen Gandhi of Hinditron, he was with me. And he said, we also want to do a similar business. You also want to do. I had no money by that, frankly. My father was not in a good shape. So we decided, let's start the business together of importing a PDP 1134 at that point in time. Now, I didn't have money. So I was scared to approach my father-in-law. I approached him, then luckily he agreed to give me a non-refundable interest-free loan. And that's how I got the business started. But then again, the PDP 11 that we brought in also was great marketing job was done by digital equipment on us. It was a PDP 11 scientific machine converted into a commercial machine by adding few features to it. But the key features were missing. For example, in those days, COBOL compiler was an important, a very critical component of applications business. So that was missing. By the way, yeah, I entered that business because I knew the labor arbitrage advantage. What I could do from a cubicle in USA, in Hartford, Connecticut, for Travelers Insurance Company earning $30,000 a year versus earning 5,000 rupees a month, that was the highest salary, sitting in Bombay. There's almost 15 times difference between the two. And all I needed was a pipe to Travelers' computer, computer center, access to those databases and applications, and I can do the work. So the labor arbitrage benefit was very apparent to us. And that's why I entered the software export business. And there were 30, 40 of us who entered the software business, software export business. But again, I mean, when you just imagine in those days, government didn't know what software is. So when you import software, you pay duty on what? Let's say the floppy drive. The software could be $5 or could be $500,000. They would charge duty on the weight of the floppy. They didn't know what software is. Now, if you file an income tax return to about your export business, they will disallow my marketing expenses, saying you are doing low-end software development work. It cannot qualify as a marketing expense. You can, so and so forth. Like Reserve Bank of India, if I go for my export trip from here to, let's say, London, and London to Boston, that's where the potential market was, and New York and back. And it happens in business, you change your itinerary because of the prospects, you come tomorrow, day after, and whatnot. You change your itinerary, you come back, you file a report to Reserve Bank. Within 1 week, you'll get a notice from Reserve Bank. Please come and appear in person and tell us why you changed the itinerary. So every dollar was important from the government's perspective. And so we were like a criminal in a way that you're asking questions about, I'm trying to do business and a hard business of software export, earning foreign exchange for the country, and then I'm getting this treatment. But anyways, that was the kind of scenario. But we are very highly competent people from IIT Bombay, IIT Chennai or Madras in those days. And we're doing great job. So customers were extremely happy. But then we realized such challenges, and something like 100 such challenges were there in the software business. And I was just writing at that time, I think there was a report by IDG saying the total outsourcing potential is $300 billion. But what was accessible to us was only 10 billion. Partly, substantially because of we didn't have access to the current state-of-the-art computers, applications, databases, operating systems, nor we had simple pipe to use the customer's computers. So how do you do offshore business without that? So all such challenges were there in terms of business. So we can see that if we come together as a group and form an association, maybe we can remove any of these obstacles. So that was on NASSCOM side, that how NASSCOM got formed. But on the Henditron side, where I was running this data center, we did very well from that perspective, but most of our business was sending people abroad. And what they call body shopping in those days, I mean today also, or on-site consulting and whatnot. But that was the only business that we could do. But there was a huge need from the customer side. On the other hand, and we had a fantastic skill set. So we just had to bridge the two. So that business kept on nicely growing. Then we, being a database technologist, I said, why not do product business? So we put up a team of 15 professionals at Mysore, away from the whole so-called distractions, and said, let us develop a database. And Oracle was just born 4 or 5 years before that. And we had some of the best of best engineers working at it. But frankly, it was a very high-risk call. We didn't know what we were, in some sense, jumping into, except that confidence will make it work. We jump in, we lose money, but that's okay. But we'll make it work eventually.
And you didn't have anyone funding your R&D?
No, we were personally funded.
Oracle's R&D was funded by CIA.
Yeah, right.
Actually, RDBMS was developed because CIA said, can we do something like this? You just dump all the data in something and we ask us a question and it should answer it.
I see.
So random data.
Yeah.
But you make it searchable.
Yeah, relational databases, they came those technologies. So in our case, so we didn't have a product engineering background. So the code our people wrote, later on I call it was a spaghetti code. Because you try to fix something, now 10 other things will go wrong. You fix it, something else will go wrong. Now you want to go and sell the product in the US market, the distributor was asking 65% commission. And here, Reserve Bank said you cannot give more than 15% commission. So no distributor was ready to sell our product. So like that, we identified 9, 10 such problems. We realized India is no way ready for the product business. And we lost big money, just write it off and got into the, main business. And then, of course, with my partners, we started a joint venture with Digital Equipment. Digital was the second largest computer company. Then it was known internally as a IBM killer. So we thought we'll have a great fortune with Digital. But things didn't work out with my partners, so we all separated.
TIFR itself started its computing with the digital, CDC,
yes,
66,
yeah,
then DEC 10 and all that. Yeah.
So then I started Onward Technology as a company. And again, just to digress a little bit, Onward brand name, in spite of all the challenges and problems and whatnot, I had Viru Hiremat, India's topmost corporate identity designer, to help me design the logo and the name.
Okay.
And Viru had his own style. You know, artistic people, they have their own way of working. So you go to his home, you sit in a chatai in front of him, and he'll ask questions. And after 3-4 sittings, he called me and said, here is the name, Onward. I said, are you kidding? Onward, can it be a name of the company? He says, no, from what you had told me, he picked up one of my sentence where I had said that I do not know whether in those days Infosys was or Infosystem were very popular names. Prefixes or suffixes for any company name. You said, okay, this computer may not be there tomorrow. Technology is changing so fast. So they gave me a thought, okay, if you are in that business where technology is continuously changing, I must give a name which will last forever. And that's how the name Onward.
Future-proof.
So,
Future-proof.
Future-proof. Fantastic, I think. And I said, but still people will not accept. He says, no, if you deliver the performance, people will accept. And today I feel so proud of Viru about being that visionary to come up with a name like
Which
Onward.
year was this?
1990, 91.
91. Wow.
He's the one who designed ICICI logo also.
Okay. Okay. So Onward was started in 91.
Correct.
And when was your association with Novell? When did that start?
After that.
And how? Yeah.
Okay. Now, Novell again at that time was the second largest personal software company. Right after Microsoft. And in our business, we realized that there is a potential for networking software in the country because we are shortage of resources, money, all kinds of other challenges. So sharing resources in a computer would be very useful. Professor Isaac of IIT Bombay, he said, Harish, don't get into it. Because he showed me a chair with a string attached to a table. He says, we don't like to give up anything because of the shortage. He said, well, so sharing will not work, he said. I said, but doctor, I'm thinking exactly the opposite. Because of that, there is a need for sharing of the resources and whatnot. But then that was, we are representing Novell as an agency at that point in time. And the government policy had opened up to have a joint ventures.
And is that how you became friends with Kanwal Rekhi?
Yes. Yeah. So they appointed a consultant and some of the leading companies of India were pitching for partnership with them. I had just started. Mine was a garage operation. And fortunately, the person whom I was working with, Mr. Olson, he met the chairman of, and this is how the companies work, you'll be surprised, the multinationals. So Novell CEO or the owner promoter, Mr. Ray Nuda, met Mr. Olson in a parking lot. And he said, this is a story I heard, that what do we do for India? We need to select a joint venture partner. We have got 4 or 5 companies. So Mr. Olson said, I know Harish, I can trust him. When he's competent, blah, 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 blah. So I would go with Onward. And that's how nobody believed, frankly, anywhere in the country, the company like Novell will join hands with Onward. So, but whatever relations we had built with that company helped tremendously. Of course, we did a smart job in terms of selling the product and supporting it and whatnot. So, in the first board meeting, Kanwal Rekhi, he had sold his company to Novell at that time called Excellent. And his company was bought by Novell only for the management. So to buy, Kanwal came on the board of Novell, and he also was on the board of Novell. So he was the first Indian at the board level in $1 billion company in those days, first Indian. And he came because of a joint venture on Novell's board. And when he came on the board, again, name-wise also, because it was a joint venture, Novell offered me, you can pick any name you want. I said, why should I pick third name? I would like to ride on the Novell brand, which I'm building globally, which has a value compared to my own another third-party brand name. So that again paid a huge dividend to us in the long run. And then Kanwal came on the board. I introduced him to NASSCOM. He saw everything. And in one meeting, he said, Harish, you are getting paid for your sweat, not for your brain. Why are you doing that business? I said, give an example, that Infosys at that time had, let's say, 3,000 masters computer science graduates working for them. And Oracle had also 3,000. But Oracle's market cap was 15 times more than the Infosys market cap. So that is the difference between you getting paid for your brain versus getting paid for your sweat. So I told Kanwal, tu yahan ke dhanda kar, then you will come to know what the challenges are in a product care. It is just not possible. India is not ready. But anyway, so that's how the convol got deeper and deeper. And he was anti-India at that time, literally. Because he was so badly treated when you enter the customs to every place. I mean, you know how.
By the way, I think there is a little side story away from this, that Kanwal, who was in the Onward novel, had some shares or investment in it. And then later when he cashed it, he couldn't take the money out. Because of the Reserve Bank restrictions. So he didn't know what to do. He said, okay, IIT Bombay is I'm an alumnus, so let me donate it to IIT Bombay. IIT Bombay said, we can't take anybody's money. You know, there is nothing called alumni donation. There is no process, there is no system for that. So for the first time, that whole system came into being to facilitate Kanwal Reiki, donate to IIT Bombay. And of course, now you have a big Reiki center in IIT campus. And that paved the way for so many alumni later to, you know, contribute to various.
That's why.
Also supported several TI scholars.
Yes. So, but that's why the Dr. Phatak of IIT Bombay, he calls me now former or honorary IITian, even though I am from college in Pune. He said, what you have done, which is a very small act of, because it took Dr. Phatak another year to get all the processes fixed so that they can take donations from outside. So that's how the Kanwal Reiki.
So that is the kind of atmosphere in which you are working. Yes. And so tell us something about Onward Technologies. What kind of business did you start in it and where it is going now?
We started in 3 different businesses. One was, because in our partnership when we separated, what I got was a services business, maintenance business, computer maintenance business. The second, and 2 other businesses, or I call it agency businesses. So where we would represent American, European companies and sell their products in India and support them. That's how we started. And of course, we saw all the ups and downs into, like we wrote a branch automation software in those days, which was so difficult because there was no higher level language available. So we started writing that code in a basic language and not easy to write. Anyway, so all that happened and we didn't succeed in the branch automation. Because I believed in those days that core banking India cannot afford. Because if a bank takes core banking solution, will cost 500 crores. So per transaction cost for processing would be 30 rupees. And most of our transactions are below 500 rupees. So 30 rupees is just the computer cost. Nobody will buy it.
When was this?
This was mid-90s. But I didn't realize that the banks will write off the entire one-time cost. So they didn't apportion the one-time cost to per transaction. So only what was the cost of running was charged to the customer. So that risk the banks had to take and they took it, which was the right thing to do, which I didn't expect. So anyways, also our branch automation.
That was the old 70s, 80s was only branch automation. There was no core banking. Only in the mid-90s with HDFC Bank and ICICI Bank, I think this core banking came.
That's right. That's how
SBI took another 10 years.
Correct.
So, what are the lessons from your own entrepreneurship? And I have just another, not a frivolous question. Since you were involved in film distribution, at that time, since you were looking for a career, did you think about Bollywood itself? Why not?
I don't know about film distribution. That's another thing that
if I had not succeeded in technology, I'm sure I would have maybe a side actor. I don't know what could have happened in the Bollywood. Yes. No, but again, my dad was very different. When my sister got married, lots of film stars had come, directors, producers, and whatnot. So at night, he asked, we're all sitting together, 5 brothers and sisters, and he asked, who was the most important person who came today? So somebody said, Sadhna is an actress. Someone said, Dara Singh is an, whatever. So different names were given to him. Then my sister asked him, but according to you, who was the most important person? So he gave the name Uma Shankar Joshi, Gujarat's what do you call, very popular writer, poet, and whatnot. And if you see Dr. Umashankar Joshi, very short, simple clothes. That's how he had come. Nobody paid any focus or attention to him. But that opened our eyes. Okay, my father is so literate, so educated, so travel abroad and all that. He is respecting such a literary person. So must have inculcated some values in us by watching and observing that.
Right.
Similarly, like I'm a Jain and I learned few principles of Anekantvad, which is still coming very handy. Anekantvad meaning there's no such thing as absolute truth. The truth is as per one person, how he or she sees it based on the context. If you know, even recently Wikipedia had a serious challenge because they believe sort of truth is saying only one, absolute. But if you are Ukraine versus Russia, how do you decide who is right? Both are right from their own perspectives. So that principle very fundamentally we inculcated from beginning, which I found it very handy as life progressed, and saying apply that principle to whatever you do. So when we talk about fiercely competing CEOs coming together, how we build them, and we'll talk about it later. So that's what this principle of Anekantvad comes in very handy.
I think that's a fantastic observation because though computers are based on binary logic, and binary logic comes from Aristotle.
Correct.
So it's either true or false.
Yes.
0, 1, nothing in between. Whereas Anekantvad and Shadvad, these are multi-valued logics, which are actually the contribution from India.
Absolutely.
To logic.
Absolutely.
And this was said by none other than Lotfi Zadeh in Berkeley, who invented fuzzy logic. He said that I learned it from Eastern religion. He didn't mention Jainism, but that because fuzzy logic says that so many things are gray. It's not black and white.
Absolutely. But talking about Jainism, when I lost I written all this in the book also. When I lost my first child at the age of, he was hardly 2.5 years old, a very tragic accident. So I stopped believing in religion. Sort of I became an atheist. As the people say there's God and there's this and that. I could not reconcile with all the philosophy people were telling me. So I said there is no such thing as God, and you live your life and you learn from that and excel in what you do rather than living in the past or passing the blame X, Y, and Z and so on and so forth. So again, that's another lesson that you learn in your life. Today, I believe our God should be, after the success of NASSCOM and collaborative way of looking at it, there should be multiple gods who work collaboratively and help us.
I think we have very limited time. Otherwise, we could have talked a lot more about anecdotes from your entrepreneurial days. Tell us something about this whole IT industry's evolution in India, and particularly the software exports. First of all, software itself, that there can be software applications, that there should be, because this is a new development. Till late 60s, there was only hardware and then associated software. So IBM will have its own version of COBOL. Burroughs will have its own version. So there is nothing called, the music came with a sitar. Okay. So the person who made the sitar also made the music. It's unlike Ravi Shankar playing on somebody else's sitar. So that separation of the software and hardware, which took place in the 70s. With IBM 360 and so on later. So it's not that we are too late in talking about software as an industry. And of course, to that extent, we have to appreciate JRD's and Palkewala's view in 1968, when there was no Microsoft, no Siebel, no Sun, no Oracle, to say that I'll start a company called TCS, which will only do computer applications, and software. So in that situation, how has this whole thing evolved? You just mentioned a few things. Some people didn't know how to
What is software? Yeah.
software.
So those of us who were in business at that point in time, there was a computer business in terms of hardware business, but hardware you can't manufacture in a sense that the chips and the other things you have to import. All you can do is assemble, maybe use PCBs and put them together, maybe make the cabinets, but that's not really hardware manufacturing. We didn't believe that business has a great potential. The government, especially the policymakers, said that time it was science department was running all the policies. Department of Electronics was some scientific officer, not IAS officer. So like that. So they were the technology gatekeepers for India. And they all wanted us to do software product business, IP-driven business, do research, do IP, and then you do it. Now to us, while it's great, we fully agree with it, but environment was just not right. I just talked about some of the issues. One big issue was, for example, protection of your IP.
Absolutely.
So we realized the real potential for us is in software services. But there also we had lots of challenges. To give an example, excise department had levied excise duty on software project work. So we went and met the secretary and we said, you cannot have duty on a half-finished work. It's a work in process. After it is done, you charge the excise duty. He understood the logic, but we were maybe very aggressive. And we would have said, you cannot charge duty on such a work. He said, young man, don't tell me where I can charge excise duty or not. The air you are breathing in, I can charge duty on that also. You want zero duty, I'll give you zero duty. So he gave us zero duty. And then I realized later on, he should have given nil actually. We didn't give nil because he wanted to keep control over it. So if it is zero, he can change the zero to a number. But if it is nil, it requires a whole another senior committee to approve it. So it kept the control with himself. So those are the challenges of nobody understood what software is. And for all of them, software was something like physical stuff. You can put it in a cupboard and whatnot. But we believe there's a good, huge potential. All we need is a pipe plus few other things, and we can be in that business. Now, we couldn't convince, frankly, the bureaucracy as well as the politicians as well as others to give a thrust to the software services business. Then one Mr. Vittal, as a DOE secretary, he came and he appointed World Bank to come up with a study about the potential for software product business as such. We told him, no, we talk about the product business also, but also talk about services also. So the person named Jake Epstein, who was doing the study from World Bank, we pitched to him why we believe services has a great potential. Now, just before that, when we talked to Mr. Vittal about software services potential, we said, Mr. Vittal, this industry can do $1 billion when we were at $120 million. He said, do you know how many zeros are in a billion? Today, we are at $220 billion. But in those days, that was the environment. People didn't have, not that we are not, even we didn't have that vision, frankly. Our vision also was maybe $1 billion. We never thought that it will be that the waves after waves of technology comes and we would all gear up to take advantage of that and I will talk about it a little later. So Mr. Vittal said, okay, fine. Then we changed the terms of reference for the World Bank study. And they came out with a report which said, if you make 40 changes in the various policies, this industry can do $1 billion. And that's how the services focus came. And still, media was calling us cyber coolies, techno coolies. You're washing the diapers of your customers because we're doing low-end work. I mean, the income tax department will also not clear certain things because you're doing low-end work. But that was the only business available. Whether it's a Mr. Kohli or Murthy or Azim or us or anybody, everyone was doing that business. And you don't worry about dignity of labor is very different way of looking at Indian saying that something what somebody has done somewhere abroad, and you compare the two. So we kept our focus on it. And Mr. Vittal later on said, you
But
guys
you still grew at double digits. Always.
Oh, yes, exactly.
That's
Yeah,
very
yeah,
important.
yeah. So then he said, you as a NASSCOM and all of you are like a lotus flower who grew in a very dirty, muddy water.
So,
And when we started NASSCOM, I can talk about few things then, that we decided the first thing, okay, we will not bribe any government officer for any policy change, in spite of hundreds of policies strangulating us. We said in our meetings, will not allow anyone to put their company logo. So somebody's done some work saying there's a great potential for, let's say, ERP work in, let's say, Germany, argument's sake.
yeah.
So when they present that data to our NASSCOM council, they cannot use their company name. We wanted to build NASSCOM as an independent, neutral, transparent platform. Everyone must trust each other. Because there's a major trust deficit between the government and us and within us. So in the beginning, when all these stalwarts would attend the meeting, nobody will talk. They were scared that if I open up, talk about some of my problems, my competitor will go and grab that business. Or if by mistake my name of the customer comes out, again my competitors will go, small market, will go after that. So everyone was scared to open up. So it took time for us to get them open up and start building trust amongst each other. So we had one KV Ramani as one of the NASSCOM member. We would meet in his room. The liquor would flow freely, the dinner and all that, hoping that everybody will now start talking. Seeing you may be a CEO of the X, Y, and Z, but you're still like you and me.
Right.
And you start opening up. So Dr. Prakash Hebalkar of Tata Barod, I think then, he called me and says, Harish, are you running a serious software organization or a social organization? I said, but Prakash, nobody is opening up in the meeting. How do we get people to open up? And if they don't open up and don't talk about it, how do we work at the solutions?
I think it is a great achievement because all these achievers in themselves had struggled hard and built their companies and building their businesses. And of course, there are trade secrets and all kinds of secrets, which every businessman tries to protect. And they have their own egos also. Each one is a pioneer in its own way. So how do they collaborate and how do they all come together to work towards one goal? So I think in building that kind of an atmosphere and an organization, I think only a person who could deal with all such people could hold it together. Otherwise, it's very easy. We have always been called a bunch of crabs, each going in their own direction. So to hold it together, I think NASSCOM did a wonderful job in that. And the second thing which you mentioned, which is that of dealing with a trust deficit with the government, and also in a very soft way, transform the government. Because as you said, that fellow will say, shut up and you can't tell me what what duty I should put. So still you want the duties to be changed, duty structure to be changed and make more rational and all that. So finally, you actually change the government. Because I was told even in TCS, when they first got a Burroughs computer, when it came, it got stuck in the customs because customs did not have a computer in their tariff list. So it took quite some time. Then along with Ram Dorai and another person called Jayant Pendarkar, they thought of something. There was one category called electrical apparatus. So they went and said, this is an electrical apparatus, and that customer officer was happy. Okay, electrical apparatus. Iska itna percent duty hai. But otherwise, they were not ready to release it. So,
But I'll tell you a story of how we build the trust with the bureaucracy. First, of course, we had all our meetings were open to any bureaucrat. Without any invitation, they just come and attend. We would take them to our offices, show them all the inner workings. It was a music to their ears because all other businesses were hiding everything because of their own ways of working. So we started building trust that way. But there was a time when we wanted income tax benefit for software.
Exactly.
And other industries had the benefit, but not software, because software services, what is it? Why should we given benefit and all that? So we have pitched into Mr. Vittal. Okay, we want software export benefit. So he came, one day he came and he said, okay, you will get software export benefit provided you do $400 million this year. and we were at say 152 or some number. So we all set, and 152 became 180. Just there's no way we could reach 400. Now, I was the chairman of NASSCOM. I went back to him and I said, sir, it's not doable. He said, you don't want the benefit. No, sir, we want the benefit, but we don't want to mislead you. We don't want to cheat you by saying it can be done. He said, but here is a MATE proposal, another association. They said 400 million can be done. Here is Engineering Export Promotion Council. There's another report. They can do it. How come you can't do it? You are the main body and you are saying no. Now, luckily for us, when we started NASSCOM, one of our precondition was we must represent 80% of the voice of the industry. Now, we were 30%, Mr. Kohli, Tata's were 70%. And he was not agreeing to join NASSCOM at that. So we said, we're not starting till he says yes. It took us 6 months to convince him. And once we convinced him, he said, I'm joining NASSCOM. So now we were strong, that okay, we have 80% of the industry voice, and now we can represent industry views. So that time, and then I told Mr. Vittal, here are the 80% of the top voice of the industry. TCS, everybody, they are saying it cannot be done. You believe us or you believe them? But then that's where he realized okay, this association is different. These people are very different. And then he went, he bought into our, we were good storytellers. So he bought into our vision of $1 billion and what, and systematically start removing those obstacles.
Right. So I think you know, this NASSCOM has been called a lobby. Of course, it is a lobby, industry lobby. But lobbying never had a very good reputation in India. Lobbying meant somebody carrying a suitcase in Delhi, delivering cash.
Or one of the MATE industrialists told us, "Kaun aapko हैरान कर रहा है? हम उनको transfer कर देंगे." Very simple way of solving it.
Correct.
So that was,
And actually, the word lobby itself comes from a hotel in Washington, D.C. Okay.
Wow.
Where a lot of senators and congressmen and everybody stay there. And then there are these people who hang around the lobby of that and catch them and tell them, do this for us and this industry, that industry.
Wow.
That's how the word lobbying came, you know. And I'll
tell you about something. That when we started NASSCOM, every other association, their only single objective, lobbying. We were the only ones who said, we will focus on building the healthy ecosystem for the industry.
Okay.
We're not just going to be focused on the lobbying. Though in the early days, 90% of our work was lobbying.
Okay.
But we wanted to build a strong, because we could see the technology will, today we are saying we have a shortage of manpower for digitalization, from AI to machine learning to name it, and all the domain areas that some of you are specializing in. A huge shortage, a huge opportunity. But in those days, also we had a severe shortage of technical strength because there was no computers, no other stuff. So how do you build that?
Because actually the bureaucracy was not at all used to it. I mean, in fact, Rajiv Gandhi and his cabinet was made fun of. They were called laptop boys.
Yeah.
And even very recently, I remember in one of the NASSCOM recently, about 8-10 years ago, when I met Sam Petroda, he was still saying, how can there be change in the e-governance in India when Department of Electronics still uses files with red tape on it and not electronic files? You know, they don't have a workplace system, workshare system and all that. So,
but I'll tell you another story I must tell you here. How we build the ecosystem. And why this bunch of entrepreneurs who were part of NASSCOM were different probably than others. Multinationals wanted to come to India because they were asked to go 10 years before during George Fernandez time. So they approached NASSCOM saying, they were very happy with the work we were doing. What the main applications were. So we would like to set up 100% owned back office operation in India. Would you suggest our proposal to the government? Now just imagine our plight. Here is multinational wants to come to India. We all knew that they can pay 3 times the salary and take away our talent.
And the biggest one, IBM.
All of them would take our talent.
Yeah.
Plus the business which we are doing under the garb of back office, they'll shift it and do 100% own. So we would be left holding the bag. So, and of course, protecting ourselves is the first priority, and use government to use that bar to stop them coming in. But we didn't. That's the beauty of these people.
True.
That when we sit together and we talk about it, some of us act as an anchor person to seek what is good for India, what is good for industry, not for a particular group of companies who may be impacted. We analyze that also. But first, overall, discuss that. In that discussion, it came out also that we didn't know quality processes, we didn't know infrastructure processes, we didn't know any of those best practices which multinationals are using it. So if they come to India, we would all learn. And bigger thing would be if they gain confidence in India Inc. as a brand, all other segments should open up for us.
And the quality movement. Tell us something about the quality movement.
Afterward, but then at that point, somebody in the group said, whoever develops human capital of India is us, and who doesn't is not us. And everybody said, after analyzing all that, we said we should allow 100% own back office operations for multinationals. We went to the Dr. Manmohan Singh, we said, this is our proposal in front of you. The secretaries or somebody from bureaucrat said, "Tum kiske dalal ho? Desh ko fir bechne aaye ho? East India Company ko beche." So there's so much of what do you call the different way of looking at not having trusting the business, but they agreed. And today that particular segment in India, we have 1,800 R&D centers. They employ 1.2 million professionals in India. They today are developing applications. Some of them have position at the board level of their parent companies. They are co-creating future for those companies sitting in India. And that's the model the whole other industry, every other player would play, a player would leverage, and industry will grow in that process. There's one single decision of allowing them to come in. So that's the concept of building an ecosystem, much beyond. And I always say that it is collaborate and compete, keeping India first, being consensus driven, no personal agenda, have a single voice, have the trust of the policy makers. Once you have that model, what do you call your road in highway is built right away for your growth. Right. Instead of waiting for 5 years and then you have a sudden growth, here in the next day you are in that business. And that's where the industry enjoyed 30% compounded growth over 30 years.
And I think other very important thing which brought new business to Indian companies, as well as brought foreign companies here to establish their centers, was the issue of intellectual property. I want to say something about that because NASSCOM did a lot of work on that.
As
piracy and all.
In the mid 80s, when I was in product game, I realized our enforcement doesn't mean they don't understand software. How are they going to protect you? Our judiciary also is equally weak. In spite of all that, but for movie piracy was rampant, music piracy was rampant, and all that was happening. So when we used to approach a prospect, say in USA or UK, they would look at us as a thief. They say, if I part with my data and software to you, you will go and sell it tomorrow in the marketplace to my competition, X, Y, and Z. Why should I trust you? So we realized at that time we need to change that brand, whatever best we can do. So we approached the government saying we would like Copyright Act to be strengthened. Now we have one bureaucrat said, where is our Kohinoor? So, Tower of London. Where is this king's jewelry in London? Where is this? Who did this? He said, the whole world has looted India for the last few thousand years. It's now our time to loot their intellectual property. Why should we protect their IP? So that was the mindset. And they look at us. We have given a Mahabharata free. We've given our Ramayana free. If we had charged a royalty on zero, Aryabhatta has invented, India would. So they didn't want to budge from, I mean, copyright or intellectual property protection was just a completely different But Mr. Vittal, we had a great run with him.
Hmm.
He saw our industry, he saw what we were doing, how we were doing. He trusted us basically. And he said, okay, I will strengthen the Copyright Act. And he did. And he strengthened it to a point where it was stronger than UK,
Hmm.
more stricter than UK. And that's how we built, you can say, the brand for,
Correct.
started building brand. Still, enforcement judiciary was still weak.
Correct.
We tried to create fast track to expedite those cases and whatnot. But
Correct.
still, we have a long way to go. We're still not there yet,
Correct.
the way it should be.
Because
But-
right around 95, when all these WTO negotiations and all this started,
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
right when WTO negotiations and all this had started
Correct,
in
correct,
95, in fact, US was going to put India under watch, that Super 301.
That's
and it was
right.
NASSCOM which said that just hold on, we'll change our laws. If you put us under watch, then we can't change the laws.
Correct,
Because
correct.
then it becomes a matter of sovereignty.
Absolutely. Yeah,
We
yeah.
can't change our laws because US is threatening us. But if you hold it, we will lobby with the government and change the copyright laws. I think that is an excellent far-sighted approach. I think we have run out of the little time we had. Otherwise, I wanted to really talk about the work you did in COEP and how to change engineering education. But maybe we can leave a few minutes for the
Before that,
interaction.
I think I wanted to answer his point about China you were talking about before.
Yeah.
I'll tell that story and then we'll open it up for
Sure.
questions. About 15 years back, China wanted to compete with India, seeing the success of our industry. We created at that time, 3 million jobs in the country, and each job would create 4 to 5 additional jobs. Plus, today we employ 40% women employees. The kind of revolution they are going to bring is an entirely different thing. We brought in transparency in the stock markets. So built India brand as a trusted nation. All that was happening. Now, so China appointed Forrester's Research as an agency to come up with a master plan to compete with India. Not only replicate Indian tech business, but grow, build on it. So John McCarthy, he told us that when he was the CEO of Forrester's, he was asked by Chinese government. That time I said, I'll prepare a plan, but my first suggestion is going to be, you must build an association equivalent to NASSCOM. Without that, you will not be able to compete with them. He said, I have not seen anywhere in the world, IBM, Accenture, Capgemini, TCS, Infosys, Wipro, all sitting around a table, solving the problem about, and I talked about some of the values of NASSCOM, where they would focus on India first and then take a policy decision. And an impossible problem gets solved in a very simple, creative way. Like I talked about how we allowed MNCs to come in. Like that, there are many such stories where because of you are the best of best Indians around the table. And when their creative juices flow to solve a problem, you'll be amazed. And I can tell you lots of stories, and all there in the book, how that creative juices flowing in a group solve a very difficult problem to a very simple solution. And that's one of the reasons why industry.
And I think other angle is that the whole Indian IT pioneers, they saw the need for industrializing software development. Otherwise, software development was some genius programmer, writing
super programmer.
So you could not break a problem into 100 parts, give it to 100 people, see that they all produce the same quality, that they're modular, they can be, then assembled together, smoothly. And there is this whole concepts from manufacturing, what Henry Ford had used in his assembly line, so that bringing it into software development, into services, that is a great contribution by Indian IT industry.
Yeah.
And those skill sets don't exist anywhere else. That's why today IBM has more than 2 lakh engineers in India. There are more engineers in India than in the US. They don't advertise it because there will be backlash in the US. So, and literally everybody is here because the skill sets are here. And in the time he mentions, 2005-06, around that time, Chinese government went out of its way to woo Indian companies to come and set up. They even offered free real estate. 3 years, 5 years.
40 of us were invited. We went to this place called Guangzhou, where the mayor gave us the red carpet treatment. While passing through certain area, there were beautiful 10-story buildings, something like 10, 15 of them. He said, I kept one for each one of you.
Wow.
Right?
And I will not charge electricity, this, rent, anything for
Right.
3 years. You just come and set up
Right.
your center here.
And for the first time, this whole quality movement which they had built up in the Indian IT industry very fast became the center of the highest number of high quality software.
Yeah.
CMM level 5, level 4, level 5 companies, highest number was in India, very fast. And then the first software company in China, which became a level 5, was an Indian company in China. And they had such a high, what today we talk about retention and people leaving and all that, that they had about 25% even in those days. And that was planned. They used to send people to get trained and take them out. But they have not been able to. Even today, for example, the top 5, 6 companies in India together have at least 1 million engineers. TCS alone has 6.5 lakh.
Yeah.
So I'm sure it's more than 1 million, 1.5 million, maybe closer to that. Whereas the biggest Chinese software company has about 25,000 engineers. Because finally, why do you need so many engineers? Only when you have large projects, you can parcel it and, integrate it, run it as an industrial project. I think that is the biggest achievement you can say. So it is not cyber coolies. It is actually
that was at that time, yes.
It's an actual contribution to the which today we call software engineering.
But same Kanwal Rekhi, who was criticized about, he said after 15 years, I think you guys did the master stroke for a country like India. India would have collapsed as far as he's concerned. But you built a critical mass of the software engineers, which will now allow you to expand into 18 different ways. I think whether, in the hindsight or whether, I wouldn't say we were visionaries, but whatever, that's what today has built a brand. And the numbers, like today industry earns $240 billion, $220 billion, which is more than Saudi Arabia. Maybe the difference is in Saudi Arabia, money goes in one account, while in India, through thousands of companies goes in the pockets of millions of people. Indirectly, our industry now supports population twice than UK. So if you see the cultural transformation that our industry is bringing in, I would say we have now built a flywheel, which is allowing almost, you can say 75,000 startups have taken birth and they are growing. Deep tech, biotech, you name it, each domain area, I think only piece missing probably is your side, in a sense that how do we build original technologies in India? So that's the part we're still working on it. We need to find a way. How do we really accelerate that, like what we did for CIEP? How do we get that R&D part cracking, which is relevant from many other perspectives? So there's an unstoppable engine has been built to convert India into a digital society. We're very happy. We feel very gung-ho about what we have seen and what's going to happen tomorrow.
Yeah,
I think on that note, we can keep chatting.
I know. There is
but especially this combo is it's like you can go on. I'm sorry to actually
No.
feel polite to kind of stop here because format. Okay. Oh, sorry. Otherwise, probably I can't be heard of you.
Social media, I'm sorry. Okay. So once again, in TIFR's very own traditional way, who are people like you, distinguished speakers come, we kind of respect them by giving this wonderful volume. I know every one of you like the TIFR paintings. So this is a book collection of all the art collection of TIFR paintings. Here is one for our moderator. Okay. Thanks once again. I think, it was lovely looking. The seeing.
So questions?
Yeah. Maybe just pick. I think we'll, of course, there will be more opportunity for interactions, especially I also want to ask on your knowledge of engineering. I think that is something close to my heart. But let us get on going from GRK.
So the Maverick refers to the fact that this NASSCOM event happened. Is that what you mean? It's unusual in Indian context, given our mindset
Actually, globally, it's not only India. We have not found similar association anywhere in the world. Sorry.
And the second thing is that it's something like a miracle, in my opinion, whatever happened in that period, full of turbulence otherwise in Indian history. Where are we going? What gives you the confidence that we'll go a long way with this, whatever we do?
Oh, number of reasons. One is I have seen India changing from bankrupt foreign exchange wise in 91 to we have $600 billion foreign exchange in one way. We could import oil, we could import smartphones, we could import so many other capital equipment to feed into other industries. So that transformation happened in the toughest environment. So today's environment, I find it very easy.
Yeah.
And from that perspective, when I look at the two and look at today's youngsters, they are I would say very fearless, they're imaginative, they're very confident. And I've been seeing at NASSCOM on this number of startups, the kind of work they are doing from space tech to drone tech to defense to biotech in all kinds of areas. It is just unbelievable. What I call the enthusiasm, money is flowing in from around the world, from US to now Indian money started flowing into the startup world. And you all know how the technologies are changing. There are multiple technologies are changing exponentially now, from artificial intelligence to machine learning.
NASSCOM for manufacturing? No.
I do not know enough to comment on it, frankly. But somebody said other day that, and so after reading your book, I realized India has a phenomenal potential on the intangible business.
Yeah.
And that could be the reason that bureaucrats didn't understand what is intangible or identity. They didn't know how to control it. If it was physical, they'll come all around. All kinds of processes.
They could tax and exploit.
So there is an anecdote I can give on that. There was a meeting in 97 when Chidambaram was the finance minister. NASSCOM delegation had gone to meet him. And they said that the import of software, should be zero duty.
Okay.
And Chidambaram got a little upset. He said, you are already $1 billion industry, 5% tax I have put, even that you are not ready to give. Then they said, no, sir, that is not the thing. It is first of all, we are a part of the global supply chain we are in. So that will be an obstacle. But second thing is you won't be able to enforce it. Because now we have these gateways from which the data is flowing back and forth.
Correct.
So how will you know what we have downloaded? So what is the value and all that? So it's simply impossible to enforce. Then a senior bureaucrat who was sitting in that thing, who happened to be a very famous bureaucrat called T.N. Session.
Yeah.
He didn't know what data meant or what was going on. Chidambaram was savvy enough to understand what is going on. He said, sir, in that gateway, we'll put a custom officer. Gateway is a gate.
It's a true story, by the way. Almost it's a true story. They didn't know. And they still, today also, they don't understand that from that perspective. And as a result, they're not able to come up with. So today, I forgot the numbers.
For them to
typical manufacturing firm has 2,300 compliances to fulfill. 2,300.
Yeah.
Can you believe a small businessman? How would he?
How will whole life
breaking the law every half an hour?
Would you advise the government to, now that you have had so much success, why not advise the government to actually reform the whole thing, whole system?
No, I think things have changed greatly, especially in the last 2 decades. I would say that is the reason that finally India has changed. See, in the 1970s, in fact, Mr. Kohli told me this story, that India would have had a much better income tax system than the IRS in the US. Much ahead of US, that India was computerizing its IT, income tax.
Yeah.
IT meaning income tax. And half the work had been done and the government changed. And the new person who took charge of finance also at that time, maybe I can give a name, was Chaudhry Charan Singh. And Chaudhry Charan Singh just said, no way, no computers. Though his son was working in IBM.
Ajit Singh was actually.
Ajit Singh was.
Okay.
Yes.
And so that whole thing was just stopped. Otherwise, this whole PAN, the permanent account number, that whole system of modernizing IT would have happened in the 70s, not in 2000s. So, but now I think finally, what the IT industry people have done is earlier they were taking the world into 21st century, but India itself was in 19th century. Now they have chipped at it,
Broken it down.
and that finally they broke so many taboos because people thought in the 80s, 70s and 80s, everybody was against computers. Unions were against computers. Ministers, so obviously ministers, politicians were against computers because they thought computers will reduce the labor, will create more unemployment when we have already such a large unemployment, you know. So first people to break that, you can say one large project which had impact on hundreds of millions of people was computerization of Indian Railway Reservation System.
Exactly.
Which was done, by the way, by a public sector company called CMC. Which was led by a real far-sighted man called Gupta, PP Gupta.
Okay.
And he brought about that change and that organization, which then till recently, it was the largest digital project in the world. That computerization of the entire Indian railway system, you know, and only Aadhaar replaced it later.
Yeah.
So in the last 20 years, banking, financial systems, stock exchanges, we were the fastest to dematerialize the shares. We were the fastest to turn from physical trading to computerized trading.
Yeah.
So every single foreign exchange markets, commodity markets, everything got into IT. Entire banking changed. We all know that. I mean, because we are in the same generation.
I would add to what
when you say that to college students, they don't understand it because they are born in a new age. You know, they are all born after the 90s.
Yeah,
You know?
maybe
I just want to add to what he said, that why I'm confident. Today, the industry and the country as such, whole, we are now focused on building digital public infrastructure. So Aadhaar, he gave an example, UPI, CoWIN. If you look at so many steps have been now taken where we are building a digital infrastructure. So he doesn't have to hopefully spend 4.5 hours of coming and going and be still part of it. So it doesn't depend so much on the physical infrastructure to get the things done. And hopefully that will accelerate the productivity in the country. So there's so many such things that are happening, which are, see again, in the digital public infrastructure also, now the people are coming forward, they're getting paid market salaries, and they're funded by philanthropists to work on public projects. They made money, they're successful, and now they are contributing. So it's very like Dr. Koshi of ONG. From where does he come? All if you see all the senior people, they come from the industry. And so they are all, you've got the most competent so-called bureaucrats now running these ventures. So I'm quite hopeful that this process will now continue. It's unstoppable.
It's a big momentum that was kind of given. Okay, so it's okay we continue at the table. Sorry, because I'm sure I too have questions, but I think we'll all catch them over a cup of tea. Thanks once again for all of you to be very patiently listening to this wonderful conversation. And also equally, I want to thank people who are on virtual platforms attending this. Thanks once again to both of you. It's a great, rare, wonderful event.
Thank you.
So kind of you to coming down and spending time with us. Absolutely, we are delighted to have both of them.
We enjoy talking about
Thank
it.
you. Thank you so
I think
much.
we'll take some photograph.
Thank you
Come,
so
please
much.
come.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe you can come down.
Yeah.